Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with the DRT, the Dispatchers Roundtable, and this is going to be round 37. Woo! 37, man. But this is going to be good. So, here we go. As always, a word from the sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Dispatch.
There is no.
And that's what happens when you end up hitting the wrong button and open mic starts. Oh, that is great. Nope. I was trying to click on this side over here to get this other spot, and that was hilarious. So instead, here is this. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. Yeah. All right. We are about to get started here with the Dispatchers Roundtable. That was hilarious that other one popped up. Oh, man. You got to love it, especially when it's live. You have to love it when it's live because there's nothing else you can do. But eat it and continue going. So, welcome back. Was going to do a DRT last month, and man, things just got so freaking busy that I did not have the chance. So I am super happy that we are back for the DRT, the Dispatchers Roundtable, for round 37, and we are going to be doing this. This live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout out, as always, to Facebook subscribers as well as patrons of the podcast. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, right under my name, if you're ever looking for any information on myself, the show, any of the shows that I do, but also social media, check that one out because that's where everything is at. It's links.co/WTT podcast, and that's links with 2 I's. That'll take you to the bio page, and all of my important information is there in one spot for all of you. So thank you for being here and for checking out this topic that we're going to be discussing here. And we're going to have some fun. So if you have any questions, any comments, or anything like that, please make sure to throw them in the comments section, and we will get to those. We will comment on those, and roll call. Where are you watching from? All of that good stuff. Throw that into the comments there. But I am going to bring my guest on, and super excited to have her back. Had her on. She was actually a speaker for Dare to Be Great 4. Has been on a couple episodes, and we did a funny bonus episode as well. So my guest today is Angela Johnson. She's a former 911 dispatch supervisor and is currently a licensed professional counselor. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Oh man, I'm doing okay except for that botch. Oh man, as soon as I heard the open mic thing going through, like my eyes just went.
I was like, wait, I've got stories for open mic night. Wait.
Yeah, hey, well, we can do that too then. Oh man, that was hilarious. I didn't know what to do. But what's funny too is that like a little bit before I brought you into the green room for us to get all of this going, for this live, DRT here, I was live on TikTok introducing myself to that platform and doing all of that, and I look up at the clock, and I'm like, "Alright, we're gonna have to do a part 2 because I'm going and doing another one over here, and we're gonna be doing that." So, good times, good
Good
times.
times.
Yes. Now, for all of those who are gonna be jumping in and listening and commenting and everything else, look at Angela's background. That
What?
color blue. I keep talking about it, but it just makes me feel peaceful, man. Like, looking at my background, it's like, it's so chaotic. Like, like, dang it, I need to do something. I need to switch it up. I need to put that screen, the green screen that I have in the corner of my room, I need to put it
Yeah.
back up
Yep.
so that it looks cool because green is my favorite color, and it kinda shows up a little bit like your color in the back there with, like, different it looks like it's got different hues, you got the shadow and
Hmm.
everything, so very nice. Thank you for being here, and, for those who are jumping in, those who are watching and everything, if they might not know who you are, a
Correct.
brief introduction of your dispatch experience and where you come from, please.
Where I come from. So I was a dispatcher for 18 years, and the last 5 I was a supervisor, and also the last 5 I was on permanent night shift. So yeah, ouch, that
W
hurt.
I was gonna say, did you like the night shift though, or was morning shift more your thing?
Evenings was more my thing. But no, I didn't. It was I hated it. So it was kind of like, well, if you want to be a supervisor, then you have to automatically go to night shift.
Mhm.
That's the way that it was. But they didn't mention that you can't come off unless somebody quits, retires, or dies, right? So you're kind of like stuck there. So yeah, surprise. So no, I didn't like night shift at all. It was for like the first year was okay. It was fun. All the good stuff happens at night, right? And you get to do things during the day but then it was just no, no, no. It was too much.
See, I loved night shift. Like, that was my thing. When I went to mornings, oh my lord, that was something else. Like, I think it was mostly because I lived, pretty far away from dispatch and everything, so I would have to wake up, especially when it was a morning shift, I would have to get up at, about 3 in the morning
Ooh.
to be able to leave by 3:30 to make it to work by a quarter after 4 to be briefed for my shift to start at 4:30, and it was a 4:30 to 4:30 shift.
Oh, that hurts. Oh no, 12 hours too? No, we didn't do
Yeah.
12s at that time.
Oh, lucky.
That was another thing. We were getting ready to do 12s, or they were talking about it. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. I can't. Nope, can't do 12s.
Well, so you have all of that, you have all that time and everything. The last part, it's nights, all this other stuff, but you start, say around 2012, and maybe it started a little bit before that, but you start building this class
Yeah.
for compassion fatigue. What was it that brought you to that point? And then, kind of transitioning to what it is that you do now?
So I know. I always think of the transition, and I'm like, I don't know how it happened. Um, I guess it was, I had been there for a couple of years. It had always been like just a series of bad calls. And I noticed that I was changing, just my whole outlook. We get the dark sense of humor, which is our coping mechanism, and just being irritable and also not sleeping and gaining weight and things like that. And then I started looking at everybody else in the radio room. And I'm like, they're the same as I am. It's cable goes out at night and the dispatchers were just like picking on each other. I'm like, where is this coming from? And nobody ever talked about mental health, ever. You just sucked it up and answered the next phone call. So I started looking into what was going on with me because I like to answer the question why. I always want to know why and what's this process? So I started looking into, and then I started reading about compassion fatigue. And I was like, well, I want to put together some type of presentation. And I just thought that we were just going to do it for my own communication center. But I ended up presenting at my first APCO. It ended up being like a 3-hour long training class that we did at APCO. And afterwards, dispatchers were coming up saying, I didn't know that's what I had, but I have everything that you just talked about. And then after that, I was like, there has to be something more. It can't just stay in this little area like my communication center or the local APCO. And for me personally, I knew that I could not stay where I was feeling the way that I was. I couldn't do the job anymore. I didn't want to be there. So that's when I was like, okay, I have to set a goal. If I know this is not going to change and I am not where I want to be. So I was like, well, what's the next best thing? Mental health. Because I talk to psych callers all day and I talk to the public. So I went to the mental health direction and it just went off from there. And I took a little break after I left dispatch to go ahead and focus on licensure. But it's ingrained in who I am. I'm a dispatcher. I mean, that's it. So now I'm finding myself coming back to it in ways of like research and advocacy for the profession. Well, that's where I am.
It's interesting when you finally get to that point where you have to make a decision, right? And it's whether to stay in the same spot or move on. And either one is hard. They're both hard, especially when and if you decide it's time to move on.
Right.
But even with it's time to move on, how do you move on, or where do you move on? Do you go outside of the profession, or do you stay within the profession doing other things? And like for me, it was super hard to leave because I felt like I was betraying my people.
Yes.
It was a hard thing, but there was someone that I spoke to, and I can't remember who it was, but and now that I think about it, a lot of people have said a version of this, and it was kind of the same for me too, was that I decided to choose myself.
Yeah.
I decided to choose myself, decided to choose my family, what would have been the best thing. But also my dispatch family, I had come to the conclusion that even though I was leaving them, what I was potentially going to be doing was not only going to help them, but the profession as a whole. So once I was able to get a hold of that, it was easier to leave. But like you, I'm a dispatcher. Like it's always going to be there.
Right.
So
Right.
you end up making this this decision. You were finding all of this stuff out and everything, and we start getting into, I guess, what are some of those symptoms? Because we're talking about compassion fatigue, but there's a lot of differences between compassion fatigue and PTSD, but some of them are so similar though that some
They are.
people might think they have one over the other. So let's talk about compassion fatigue first. What are some
Okay.
of those symptoms, or what is it, and then what are some of those symptoms?
Okay. So compassion fatigue is this exhaustion that we experience by dealing with everybody else's bad day. The saying is nobody calls 911 if they're having a good day. And over time, due to this constant exposure of like traumatic calls and the lack of perceived support that we have at our agencies, we become not only emotionally exhausted, but physically as well. And it's very similar to PTSD, except for the way we become traumatized. PTSD is directly, it's either yourself, someone like your family member, or directly witnessing it. because dispatchers, we hear it. It's not considered witnessed. But like for me, I became irritable. I wasn't sleeping. I know night shift, I maybe sleep like 3, 4 hours at a time, and then hopefully try to sleep before I had to go on shift. Just becoming numb, no emotion whatsoever, whether it was on duty or off, because there's that exhaustion. I didn't have any more of myself to give anybody. There's also um, remembering the event. It's not your event because it didn't happen to you, but it's playing back in your mind the caller's trauma, whether it was something you heard on the phone, like the screams from the person. It's just constantly playing this back in your mind, or even questioning yourself over and over again. Did I do it right? Or playing your tape back just to make sure you didn't transpose an address. And it's that anxiety and increased depression, difficulty concentrating, not trusting yourself anymore, and hypervigilance, easily startled. You know, start like you're driving down the highway and you know every color of the car around you and you don't even have to look because you saw it once, because you're just paying attention to everything all the time. And it's just
Holy
not having time for yourself.
damn. So I have that response mainly because as you're saying all of this, even like now sometimes, because it for those who are watching and listening, you come from dispatch and you leave dispatch. It's once dispatch, always dispatch. Like that
Mhm.
stuff stays with me.
Yeah.
And that one part of you talking about driving and knowing every color of car around you, like, I do that now. Like, I still have that ability where, I'm driving even, like, when I was in dispatch and same now, I'll be driving, I know the color of cars around me, their make and model. I might even look at some license plates and
Yeah.
I'll say them back to myself in case something were to happen. Oh, man, that shit doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't go away. Or you're in the store and you're looking at somebody walk in, you look at head, feet, and hands to make sure they're not like carrying anything.
Right. Yes. And I don't know about anybody else, and I don't know about you, but oh man, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but um, because I just feel like a weirdo. But while I'm sitting in my living room, like everybody will be asleep, and I'll be there, and if I hear a loud noise outside or something, I'll mark down the time
Yes.
just in case. Like if whatever I heard turned out to be something gnarly, like, and people were looking for, times or something like that, I'd be able to say, "Well, that noise that you reported on, I heard it at such and such time." Oh, geez. It
Mhm.
kind of makes me think of, so something I started about 4 years ago, and actually it started from a conversation with my wife where she was saying, "You know, I wonder if there's a way, to kind of communicate between dispatch and their family, something that they would want to say that maybe they don't know." And I remember saying something like, so like if I could tell you one thing or something like that. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I wonder what would happen. So I put that out there and people responded to that like just like crazy. And right now I started it up again and people have been sending stuff in. So like for example, someone saying, um, it's I'm sorry that I'm always so hyper aware of everything or that I don't
Mhm.
let you do certain things, but what you don't know is I took a phone call from, someone and this happened. And it had been going out there and this seems to be kind of building and building. We're finding out more that there's a lot going on with people, and, of course, they feel more comfortable sharing it anonymously,
Yeah.
but, I think it's really good. I think it's good to have conversations like we're having now and projects like the If I Could Tell You One Thing, where people are putting that out there and they're able to give it to their family and say, hey, I want you to read this so that you can understand it more. It's not that I really can't tell you or don't know how, but just read this and you'll understand.
Yeah, exactly. Or if I come home and I just can't talk right now, it's
Yes.
because I've been talking for 8 to 12 hours. And it's like, I just can't.
Here in the comments, I want to I want to put this on the screen really quick. Sandra says, I save times when I hear loud noises and also try to remember license plates and a description of vehicles. Yes, not the
Yes.
only one.
No.
Oh man, yeah. See that, so that happens. And
Mhm.
I remember when I was in dispatch too, like I didn't know about compassion fatigue. I didn't know about like secondary trauma
Yeah.
and the types of things that causes. Like I had a conversation once with Dr. Stephanie Kahn, and she's got a book out there where she's talking about a lot of this stuff, and there was one part that really got me where it's talking about like stomach issues,
Yes.
and I didn't have these issues until I was like deep into my dispatching career. And I remember sitting there and looking into the camera at her and me saying something to the effect of, so you're telling me that all of these issues that I've been having with my stomach has to do with secondary trauma?
Yes.
I mean, mostly, with secondary trauma, and not that I'm just, some slob feeding myself with a bunch of crap. Like this whole time, and even after I changed my diet, it did help. Things got a lot better. I was exercising, doing all types of things,
Mhm.
but I never put two and two together. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, but that was one of those things.
Yeah, it is. Definitely stress can manifest in physical ways, whether it's with stomach or like headaches. And you ever like clench your jaw and you're just clenching your jaw and you don't know you're clenching your
No.
jaw. Even when you're sleeping, you're clenching your jaw. And
Yes.
then your dentist is like fussing at you because you have no back teeth anymore. Or like the shoulder tension,
Right.
muscle aches. It's like everything aches sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, that was another thing where I didn't realize, and a lot of you who are watching and listening right now, if you're still in dispatch, this is one thing to really pay attention to that seems very simple, but you don't know that you're doing it. And so what I didn't realize that I was doing a lot of until I really started paying attention, but also it was like the last year and a half of my dispatching career, was that I was like this a lot of the times, and this is where I was carrying like all of the pressure and stress. So, when you have your shoulders up, you're tensing that, and I would have almost like a jawbreaker size knot, on this shoulder, and then I took a moment to just drop it down, and even like right now, it's like, oh, like that feels so much better. But you don't know that you're doing it, right?
No, you don't until you either somebody tells you, why are your shoulders up to your ears? Or you go home and you change positions or something, and then you realize that you've had your shoulders up to your ears all day long for hours.
Mhm. Yeah, and another thing I remember is going to the doctor. I went to my doctor and he goes, "You're really stressed out." And I said, "Oh, no shit." I'm like, "Really?" And he goes, "You need to try to not be stressed out. What do you do for work?" And I said, I've never told you what I do for work." And he goes, "No." He goes, "Whatever it is, you need to be less stressed." And I
Okay.
said, I'm a 911 dispatcher and call taker." And he goes, "Okay, well, I guess you can't be less stressed then." I was like,
No.
"Yeah, bingo." But also during that time, I was telling him about my shoulder pain and stuff and how I was having these neck issues. And as I'm saying this, he's walking towards me slowly, which was weirding me out because I'm telling him about my neck issue. And he goes, "Oh, really?" And as he's getting closer and talking to me, I notice his hands are closer up to his like face and his chest. And he's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah." And he gets real close to me. And I swear, this was the fastest I've ever seen someone do any movements. He went quack, quack, And I just sat there and he goes, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I feel amazing. Um, why didn't you tell me you were going to do that?" And he goes, "Would you have let me do that to you?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah.
But it helped, it helped. And I want to look here actually really quick in the comments. So we got Robin here that says, I feel that I feel the not wanting to talk after shift. I call to check on my mom every evening. Sadly, she's learned to understand when I say I have nothing to talk about, that I'm talked out and listened out. I just want silence. And
Mhm.
I think that's good as well. And you can add to this too when when we have that support system, right? When we have the family or friends that when we say something like that, they know and they don't continue.
Yeah, exactly. That support system is very important. But it's up to us too to communicate to our support system about what our needs are.
Right. That's a big thing because I know for myself, I would attempt to, and then if I felt like whoever it was that I was talking to just like if there was a vibe or it
Yeah.
seemed like they didn't understand or whatever, I would just say, "No, never mind." Which was stupid because I shouldn't have just given up. I shouldn't have. I should have explained a little more so that the person understood without going into detail, right?
Right.
Without going into anything like that, but to say, like Robin says here, that I really don't have anything to talk about, but also, also say or explain, I've been talking all day to people. You have no idea the types of stuff that I've heard, and I can't just I need a moment. I can't
Mhm.
talk right now. So yeah, no, I fully agree. You're right. It's up to us to be able um to get that out there and let people understand that because we don't always do that, do we?
No, we don't.
Yeah. Deborah
I'm guilty.
here's what's that?
I'm guilty. I didn't do
Yeah.
that either.
Yeah, a lot of us are. Again, which is why I think these conversations are very important. But Deborah here mentions migraines, TMJ, stomach problems, high blood pressure. She says my doctor was so happy when I retired. My doctor was an older doctor. He passed away a while ago, but um, it was the same thing with me. I didn't have the migraines or TMJ or anything like that, but the stomach problems and the high blood pressure, yep, that was a big thing. And it's still I still deal with it. I still deal with it.
Yeah, me
Um
too.
so what about PTSD? What exactly is PTSD? Again, we were talking about how things are similar, things are different. And so what exactly is PTSD? But then also, what are some of those differences between the two of those, CF and PTSD?
The main difference is the route of traumatization.
Mhm.
It's how we become traumatized. With PTSD, it's either experienced, witnessed, or been confronted with an event or events that involve actual or threatened death or serious individual to either ourselves or to somebody we know, like our family members. Basically, the symptoms are almost exactly the same. It's just not our event that we're remembering. We're remembering the phone call that we took and what we're hearing from the caller instead of an actual experience to us.
Now, is treatment different though? Is it different for both, or is it pretty similar as well?
It would be pretty similar. The only
Mhm.
thing is, compassion fatigue is not a recognized mental health disorder. So I can diagnose somebody with PTSD, but there is really no diagnosis for compassion fatigue.
Mm, I see. Okay.
That's the thing.
Wow.
Also, PTSD has a time frame. It is recurrent, persistent, experiencing the symptoms for 30 days or more. And it doesn't really vary much. But compassion fatigue, we can have some days that we're really good. And then we'll get triggered by something and then we're just not. Or it's this constant state of exhaustion. with compassion fatigue. So that's the difference. It's like if I have a client that comes to me, I can't diagnose him with compassion fatigue because there isn't one.
Wow.
I would have to say, well, let's look at something else
And go from there.
and go for.
Well, excuse me. I like what Robin has down here because it's very true. So Robin says here, we just pile on more. We are fixers, but it's hard to take the time to fix ourselves. And along with how you were just mentioning that, and James here jumping in, he actually said, "That's weird, James. You're in my head, man," because he says constant state of exhaustion. I was
Yes.
seriously going to say the same thing. Um, Talking about what you had just said, that main point, I remember coming home sometimes and just wanting to lay down, and because I was exhausted. And I remember at the time thinking, okay, I didn't get enough sleep, I probably didn't eat well, I wasn't drinking enough water or whatever. But it wasn't just that, it was deeper than that. It was the amount of calls. It was what compassion fatigue is. But again, I didn't know that at the time. And I remember I would just go and just lay on the couch and just lay there and just not want to be, like you said, you've already, your cup's already empty. There's
Mhm.
nothing else that you're able to give anyone else. And if someone approaches you, you're like, oh, I've got nothing more. Just hold on. Give me a second. Let me do something to, which is why, exercise or walking, whatever really did help. But man, that, as James put it, that constant state of exhaustion, that's a hard thing to get by.
It is. It really is because you're laying there, but you can't sleep, and but you're too exhausted to get up. I know I
Mm.
need to exercise, but I don't have the energy to do that, and I don't want to talk to you. So it's
Right.
just
Right. And
let me
and
just sit there.
I remember, family members and stuff, they would say, I just need you to give me a call. And I would just be texting and I would say, I don't know how to explain this, but I can't talk to you on the phone right now. And it was, I think even one time it was my mom. My mom needed me to call her, and I was texting her and I said, Mom, I need you to understand. I really can't talk on the phone right now. I don't even know how to explain it to you, but I just took back to back to back to back calls in dispatch, and I need a moment. Just please text with me. And she was fine. And I was able to call her a little bit later, and then I explained more. And she's like, "I'm so worried about you." I'm like, "I get it. I understand. I'm worried about me too."
I get the text thing definitely
Hmm.
because when I first started dating my husband, he would want to call me, and I'm like, no, text me. don't I don't want to talk to you. It's not against you. It's just I hate talking on the phone.
Hmm.
Text me.
Yeah, it's an odd thing, especially with folks that don't understand. But I'm glad that there's a lot of people out there though that do take the time to try to understand and figure it out together, because that's the best way to do it. And so let's see, Robin here says, just to be able to get that energy to do something for yourself when you get to that point of exhaustion is a huge feat. It's a
Yeah,
horrible circle to get trapped in. Yes, for sure. And then
it
James
is.
says, instead of resting resting bee face, I suffered from resting tired face. Jim, you look tired. Yeah, I remember that as well. I definitely do. Um, Now, as we're talking about these differences, similarities, all of this between compassion fatigue and PTSD, I want to mention, for all of those who are watching now, but also those who are going to end up watching the replay, you've got a study that you're doing right now, right? What can you explain the study and what all that entails?
Yes. So during the pandemic, I had a captain that worked for the police department who's going through a PhD program. He's like, "Why don't you come do this?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" So in my
Just one
PhD,
more thing.
I don't know. I was already at home in my blue room, so might as well.
Yeah.
So for my dissertation, it is very important to me to really talk about dispatchers and compassion fatigue. Because in doing the research, one, there's hardly any for dispatchers. And what is out there is really great. I mean, don't get me wrong, really good research studies, but I felt that they were missing the voice. They were all about statistics and numbers. And I'm like, where's everything that a dispatcher goes through, experiences? I don't see that written anywhere. And where is the voice of the person that is taking the 911 call? So I am doing a study. It is qualitative, so it's important to me to get the experiences of the dispatcher included in this. So, yes, it's anonymous. I never ask for agency. So if anybody ever asks me, I don't know. I don't collect it. I have no idea.
Awesome.
But my goal is to really just shed light on the challenges that dispatchers face every single day that results into compassion fatigue and what they experience with compassion fatigue.
Excellent. Now for that study that's there, I did put the link in the comments, so please make sure to check it out, fill it out, take part, and share it as well. And I'm going to be sharing it on social media a little bit later on this as well as we go through this. Now I want to ask a question to the audience, but also to you, Angela. Um, what are some challenges faced by dispatchers today?
I've got a whole list.
All right, let's hit it. What you got? What are some of the ones that you got there? Like, what are some of the top that you think are some of the issues, challenges, whichever that dispatchers are facing today?
We do not get closure
Mhm.
with calls. Um, when we have a traumatic call, we don't have the space to process it. We have to pick up the next phone call. And usually the next phone call is, what time does the parade start? And you're sitting there go, dude, do you know what I just had to do? I had to give CPR to whoever, and now you're asking me what time the parade starts.
Right.
Uh, Cell phone calls. It's not CSI. We can't ping what closet you're hiding in a 12-story apartment building. It doesn't happen that way. We get cussed out all the time, you know, for no particular reason. They just call, cuss you out, and hang up. Be like, yay, have a good day. Individually, that's not so bad, but it does take a toll over time.
Right.
We have, I have specifically had this. This is one of my things. So people are human, right? Humans make mistakes. But dispatchers have to be, in a sense, greater than human, as they cannot make a mistake. Because if they do, it could cost somebody their life. Also, there's an increase in liability just in the past few years that we didn't have like 20 years ago. What else do we have? Workplace environment. I get jealous when you talk about a radio room with windows. I had a bunker with carpet on the walls, and sometimes in the false floor, I don't know, and somebody would step and it would fall, and you would end up in the wires,
Oh
or
no.
random spiders that would fall from the ceiling.
What? This sounds like you were in a dungeon, man. This sounds horrible.
It was. Um, let's see what staffing shortages. All right. So I think like in 2001, we had full staffing. And I don't think we've ever had full staffing since then. And everybody that I have talked to is like short staffed too. And they're going to like 12-hour shifts with mandatory overtime and canceling your days off or canceling your vacation. Those are just some of the challenges. I'm sure there's more, but that's just flows off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I shouldn't say this because I don't want you to throw that cup at me. But my dispatch center, we did have windows. and and it overlooked an all sport lake. It was cool, but it also was especially if you're working overtime and it was nice outside. I've I would look outside and just be like,
I know.
like I
Well,
want to
I'm
be
doing
out.
that
I
now.
want
I
to
can
be out
imagine
there.
it. I did that too just now. It's like, oh, that sounds so nice.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So the view was cool, but damn it, I wanted to be out there. It was almost like a tease, is what I'm saying. It was like
Yeah.
a tease a little bit. So it was cool, but not always cool. Um, but no, I get, all of those issues. And you're right, when I started my dispatching career, it was 2001, and staffing where I was at was great. And then a few years later, I ended up going to or moving back home to Southwest Michigan, working for Central Dispatch, and we were short staffed already. This was, I don't even remember what year it was at that time, but that first weekend that I was by myself off of training, I got forced in 3 times. So if that tells you anything about the short staffing, and that was my thrown to the lion's den. Welcome to dispatch, Ricardo.
Exactly. Exactly. Or a hurricane. And so during the hurricane, we would have to stay. So we're there for 4 days straight. We don't leave. We're sleeping on some kind of cot that came from somewhere who nobody knows where. Finally get to go home. Get a phone call. I shouldn't have answered. I should have known better. Ordered to come right back in after 4 hours, and we don't have power. So,
Are you on like generator or something?
well, the radio room does. I mean, like at home,
Yeah.
we were out of power for like
Oh,
over
at home.
a
Oh,
week.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So there's like no laundry, no shower, no. I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm going back in.
Yeah. Looking at the comments here really quick, Robin says, well, James, let's start with James over here. It says lack of proper staffing, as we were, saying. He says across the nation. Robin says short staffed, call load increase under every agency. You serve microscope nitpicking if using Pro QA.
Yes.
Heaven forbid you say something out of order while you are on the radio with someone screaming while on the phone. Yeah, I never had to use we didn't use Pro QA.
Oh, we did.
We still we had the cards. We had the cards. They use
Oh,
Pro QA over there now, but we had those cards where you're just like flipping through and everything. And I had probably all of those memorized as well. Let's see. She says we have windows to the hallway walls. Oh, okay. James says, what about watching a civilian receiving an award and an officer receiving an award, and yet your partner who connected the two got squat? There's that,
been there.
yeah, that recognition and acknowledgement that's not always there. Right. Yes. And Robin says,
Exactly.
yes, James, their pat on the back for saves, but how about what we started before they got there? Yeah,
Yes.
that's a hard thing, man, because then along with compassion fatigue, or the possibility of someone suffering from um, PTSD or anything like that, that's almost like an insult to injury, right? A little bit, where you're doing all of this stuff and all of this is happening to you, and there's none of that recognition, even if there was just like a good job,
Right.
an attaboy or an attagirl, thank you for what you do. But then again, I say that, but there's a lot of us who will end up getting that little bit of recognition. And what do we always say?
It was just my job. You don't have to thank me.
Yeah. It's like I was just doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to allow ourselves to take the compliment.
Yes.
And I say that from experience, because I wouldn't always do it. I would just be like, thanks. I appreciate it. But deep down, I was like, aw,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
thanks. But why do we feel like we can't be excited, or that we can't say, hell yeah, I did this. Yeah, of course, there's a bunch of people involved, but we should allow ourselves to say, yeah, good job, or pat ourselves on the back. I don't know what it is. What do you think?
The culture
Mm,
that this is the way that it's always been. You're just doing your job. We're not used to it, for one. Could be
true.
part of it.
Very true. James says it is changing for the better as far as that goes in more recent times. And that is true. It is very true. But there are some places that are still out there where it's still that same mindset. But I'm
Mhm.
glad that, again, that we're having conversations like this to be able to change that mindset and, continue to evolve and move forward for each other because we're all that we have. Now, moving on from here, and there's one more question that I have here on my notes, but I'm going to save that for the end here. But one of the things that I want to touch on now for this last part of this broadcast is that top five. Excuse me, that top five for building dispatch resilience. Now, when I asked you this a few weeks ago in the bonus episode that we did for your episode that went out there to subscribers, you did not hesitate to respond. Like, this was right on the tip of your tongue. You were already putting it out there. So let's look at the first one that you mentioned, and that's boundaries. Tell
Yes.
us about boundaries.
Boundaries. Boundaries help keep us safe. They help with that, also our sanity. Without boundaries, we are heading in an area where we don't want to be. But it is that focus on the work-life balance. Because who were we before we became dispatchers? Finding that balance and setting that boundary will really help to protect us and be able to do our job the way that we want to do it. Because we didn't get into this for the money. We know this.
Yeah.
We got into it because we like to help other people. And in order to do that, is that we have to put back into ourselves, and it starts with setting boundaries.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. When that was your number one of the top five, I thought, she is so right. Boundaries is such a big thing. And um, again, with a lot of things, I think it's getting a lot easier, a lot better now that people are. And I think it's because we're finally talking about it more, especially this first point of setting boundaries, because I don't think a lot of people do or have done so, and now more people are because there's more conversation about it. The second one, especially the second one that you had mentioned, was self care.
Yes. Just like, I mean, we can't help other people unless we take care of ourselves first.
Mhm.
But for some reason, I know myself included, I was thinking that self care was selfish. I'm here to help other people. Why am I putting myself first? But self care is, if I don't, my body is going to make me one way or the other. By some way, it's going to act out and do something I don't want it to do because I didn't take care of it.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And just the way I believe it was Robin who was talking about um, we're fixers, right?
Mhm.
And we want to be able to fix everyone, and all kinds of different things, but um, but I also agree, with what you're saying that we don't ever look at ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves, and if we don't listen to our bodies, one day it'll happen. One day your body will make you listen. And I say that also because there's a lot of different things that I do. And I don't always listen to my body. And it was the same way in dispatch. And there were a couple times where I ended up in the emergency room. Not a lot of people know this, but I ended up in the emergency room with like heart palpitations and all kinds of other things that were going on. And it was because it got to the point where my body was finally like, hey, dumbass, guess what's going to happen? And my body shut down. And I ended up going to the emergency room, and they checked me out. They did all kinds of tests, and all they came back with was, one, you need to make sure that you're taking your high blood pressure medication, and two, um you are just extremely stressed out. Your heart is fine, your blood work is fine, like everything else is fine. but there is something going on that you're not taking care of, and you
Yep.
need to take care of yourself, or the next time you come back in, it's going to be for something way worse, and you don't want to be there.
Yeah, true. It's like I was working 34 days in a row and thought that that was normal, without a day off, because it was normal at the time. That's just what I did. And wondering why I ended up where I was, exhausted, couldn't do anything. And yes, I also ended up in the ER and had to have surgery. So that's learning self care. It's important to take care of ourselves so we can help others. And also to be there for our families too and ourselves.
Right. So I had another thing happen to me where I ended up in the ER. I thought I was having a heart attack, and they ran everything, and it came out that it was an anxiety attack. And I said, I've never had anything like that before. And they said, well, you need to start taking better care of yourself, or that shit's going to be, I mean, they didn't say shit, but they said that stuff is going to be happening more. And I took hold of it. But if I could go back in time and talk to myself with everything that happened, talking to myself in the beginning of my dispatch career, I would tell myself to look into that a lot more, a lot sooner. Get into yoga, get into meditation, especially meditation with breathing techniques and everything. And just be honest with myself and blunt and brutal and say, this is what's going to happen if you don't do that. So those who are listening and watching now, take this take this to heart, because that's why this conversation is so important.
Yeah. I tell myself to take that day off and not
Yes.
not a regularly scheduled day off. It was mine to take it. And I don't need to work every day.
Right. Yes. Because some of us, a lot of us, I think, um, you kind of take that almost like a badge of honor, and
Yes.
like, oh, I've been working for like 3 weeks straight, man. I've been doing all this OT and everything. Like, you're not getting an award for it. Like, you're some shit's gonna go down. I mean, I know, you know, there's a lot of, we need to get, you know, when I was taking a lot of overtime, it was because I was planning for, a family trip, or it was for Christmas or whatever. I'm getting all that money, and I'm like, oh, that is great. But man, it didn't turn out that great when I'm on that vacation finally after doing all that overtime,
Mhm.
and all I want to do is sit. I don't want to do anything else. And my family's like, come on, let's go to the beach. Let's go do this or that. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do.
And with the self care, it doesn't have to be anything big.
Hmm.
It really doesn't. It can start very small. Quiet time with a cup of coffee can be self care if needed.
Yes.
Just, yeah, just something like that. Or it
Right.
can be big. Go get, hair done or go to the gym, work out. But
Go
it
get
can start small.
a massage, man.
Yeah.
Man, a massage, like, take advantage of the insurance that you have. Go get that massage. Like, take the time, because man, that is good stuff there. Now, number 3 is having a goal.
Mhm.
Another important one.
It is having a goal. It gives us something to work for. It doesn't, it can be whatever you want it to be. Is there an APCO training class that you want to take? Is there some type of training in your communication center? Is there a hobby that you wanted to do? Did you have a hobby before you came into the radio room that you let go because you're working every day? So I'm going to pick that back up. Or is there something with your family that you want to do that you want to work towards? It's just having a goal. It kind of gives us that purpose of something.
For sure. Yeah, goals are very, very important. Deborah over here says, oh, to have an actual hot cup of coffee.
Yes, hot one, not a hot one that was hot 2 hours ago, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, not hot 2 hours ago, but also not hot that has been nuked like 10 times, and then by the time, you go to drink it that 10th time out of the microwave, it's alive now because it's been radiated so much. Oh, I definitely feel that, yeah. Um, the next ones are social support, and you kinda mentioned the 5th one a little bit already, but,
Mhm.
balance. So social support was number 4, and then balance.
Social support is very important. It is, we shouldn't have to feel like we have to carry all of this by ourselves. Having somebody to talk to, or even, I know people always ask, what's the worst call you've ever taken? And then you tell them and they cry. It doesn't have to be that kind of person that you talk to,
Mhm.
just somebody. It can be mental health therapist, it could be peer support, it could be friend, family, just somebody to talk to for support. Keep friends that are out of public safety. Keep those. Before we get into public safety, we all had like friends, and then we kind of lose them as we go through this. I know for me, night shift, all my friends started dropping off because they wanted to go out or do things. And I'm like, well, gotta go to work. Sorry. And they keep dropping. But if I wouldn't work the 34 days in a row, then I may have had some time for friends. But it's just having that support, somebody to be there in your corner.
Yes, that is super important, but, I agree as well, having friends outside of public safety, but also making sure that those friends know that, if you don't wanna talk about your calls, that, don't continue to ask. Like,
Right.
if I offer it up, then, you know, take it, but otherwise, I'm probably not gonna just talk about it because we're going out so that I can not, think about any of the bullshit that, I was dealing with, some of those hard calls and everything. Um, so yeah, no, I agree with that. There there were a couple times where I got invited places and I said, I can't go, man. I gotta work. But then a few days later, um, they'll say, or they ended up saying, man, you won't believe what happened to us that night. And I would say, I know what happened because I was
Right.
working in
I took the
dispatch.
call.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, let me tell you what happened on my end. Oh
Right.
man, yeah. Some of those definitely fun ones. So what I want to do now here is we're kind of going into the wrap up of this live broadcast, this round 37 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, which has been awesome to have you on here and have those in the comments here talking and giving their feedback and everything as well. Um, the audience, I had posted something about a week or so ago asking what their top 5 was, and I wanna go through some of these, but the last one that I'm gonna go through, there's a lot of detail to it, so for these first ones, I'm just gonna kind of go, here and there mentioning some of the parts, but, so we've got, have a healthy stress outlet,
Hmm.
don't cut your sleep short, which that damn, that is a big one right there because for me, so, I told you I worked midnight shift all the time. It
Hmm.
was 12 hours, 4:30 to 4:30. My issue was I felt like I was missing everything that my kids and family were doing, and I
Yeah.
didn't wanna miss anything. So, I would sleep sometimes 3 hours, 3 and a half, 4 at the most, and then continue the day all the way up until it was time to go right back into work.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing, you gotta make that decision, you have to decide, but that was something that I did all the time. I would cut my sleep short, and man, you don't get that time back.
Nope. There is no such thing as catching up on sleep.
Nope.
Doesn't happen.
Yes. Doesn't happen at all. So another point here was to get a therapist. Even if the way this person put it here, get a therapist, even if you think you don't need it. Um, Let me stop there here for one moment because I'm gonna pull out that question that I had mentioned before. So, how important to you do you think that it is to speak to someone, therapist, counselor, whichever, that actually has public safety experience? Because there's a lot of folks out there that are amazing at what they do, but sometimes when you're talking to someone who doesn't understand, or the first thing they ask in response to whatever you told them is, "How does that make you feel?" You kind of like I don't know. It kind of it might throw you off. So, in your opinion, how important is that?
First, let me start by saying seeing a mental health therapist doesn't always have to be because we are experiencing something bad.
Mhm.
Just think of it as like a neutral third party that you go to just to talk about things. Now, for me personally, it was very important for the therapist to understand public safety because when I'm telling stories, I want that other individual to be able to understand, not necessarily empathize with, but to get it, to understand what I'm talking about.
Yes.
When I'm talking about certain aspects of the job, for me, it was important for them to know. Also, I think that it is important that, so if your therapist, you cannot find one that knows about public safety, at least to have training in trauma, because that is a specialty. So at least they are aware of the impacts of trauma.
Excellent. So the next set here of tops that they have for building dispatch resilience. So that this person um, mentions self-management, environment management, continuous training, effective leadership, and then mental health services. Another one says vulnerability, respect, empathy, leadership, and professionalism. And so this one says have a healthy stress outlet, find one person to vent to, find a healthy hobby, keep your mental health in mind. And this last one, utilize PTO. Everyone needs a break at times.
Yes, absolutely. I like how they use the precursor healthy coping.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, definitely. Now, this last one was the one that I had mentioned to you
All right.
that is in detail. Each point has detail to it. But the last point was the one that I was telling you that I think you'll get a kick out of and is something that I want to do. So here's the first point. So it says get plenty of rest in your off-duty hours. The laundry, dishes, and vacuuming can wait. Don't overschedule yourself with errands and appointments on all your days off. If you do nothing more than scroll social media while binging Netflix and snacking, you've rested and cared for yourself.
Yeah, but the snacking that got me in trouble. You
Oh,
know,
did it?
yeah. I had issues with stopping. Like I can't have Oreos. I would eat the whole bag,
Mhm.
or the box of Swiss cake rolls. No, there's no such thing as just eating the one small package. When being stressed and eating, and because I eat for comfort too. No, that whole box will be gone in like 2 days. No,
I
no, no,
I
no.
feel you. I think I used to annoy some of my coworkers on my team because I would bring like a family box of wheat thins and I would almost eat that whole box in that 12-hour shift because when we're there, we're snacking. And then, when I'm at home and there's nothing going on, I'm like,
And then the radio room created a snack table. I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? And it was supposed to be like money collected for charity, right?
yeah.
But it was like cupcakes and candy bars and no, that's not
So,
good.
so wait a minute. Were you telling them what's wrong with y'all as you're like picking what you want
Yes.
to?
Yes. I was like, wait, let me go get my money, get my change out of my car.
Yeah.
That cupcake is mine. Y'all better not touch it. I'm gonna get you. Yes, it was terrible.
Oh, that's funny. So the second point here that this person makes is have a good support system in place.
Mhm.
People you can talk to about all the gritty details while knowing it won't go further than that conversation. Your pastor or priest, a therapist, counselor, a close as family friend, spouse, or partner, and follows it up with that support system should also provide a safe place for you to express the feelings that come with talking about those difficult calls.
Yeah. I think that's something else that is important for us too, is to have that person that we trust, that we know no matter what we say, it's not going to go any further than that person.
Right. Robin down here says the dispatcher spread.
Oh, yeah, that is so real.
Oh, that's funny. So the third point here from this person says use your PTO. No one gets an award at the end of using the least amount of it. Burnout is a real thing. If you use your PTO and still feel burned out, seek professional help.
Yep, completely agree. That's why we earn vacation time. Why don't we take it?
I think I think it's the same thing as when you're getting to the point where you're deciding whether you want to stay in dispatch or leave dispatch. And it's that feeling guilty.
Yeah, it
You're
is.
feeling guilty for taking and I say that because that's the way I would feel. And I
Yeah.
remember my wife would say, "We want to see you too." And I would say, "Well, I know that. I want to see you guys as well, but I feel bad leaving them because I know that." And and it would get into that and it would be
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I would do it, but I would feel like shit. I would feel really bad for choosing myself, which
Hmm.
sucks.
It
And
does.
it is changing again with these conversations. A lot of that is changing, and we're learning from each other, which is good. It's a good
Hmm.
thing. Um, let's see. James over here says, I reviewed my hours last year. My overtime work matched my vacation used. Did I actually take a vacation? Hmm. Not when you're tied. No. Um, Robin says, yes, I was going to say the feeling of guilt, even with having to use sick time when you're really sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
And then the hard part with being sick is you feel guilty if you call out sick. So you come to work sick, and then, we're stressed, our immune system is down anyway, then everybody gets sick. And
Right.
then we stay sick like the whole winter because we don't even get outside. We don't have windows, we have carpet. It's just one big petri dish after a while.
Hmm. Yeah. No, for sure. Um, so the fourth point here that this person makes is so self-care in
Mhm.
whatever form it takes for you is important. You cannot be there 100% for your community and colleagues if you don't take care of yourself. If/when you notice a lack of love for things that used to make you happy and whole, reach out for professional help.
Yep, absolutely true.
So here's the final point. The
Uh-oh,
one the one that I've been telling you about.
it's coming.
Uh Here we go. So the final point that this person makes is have an outlet for stress that is healthy. Go to the gym or go to the gun/archery range, buy a bunch of cheap thrift store glass and smash it. Go to a rage room. That right there is what I've heard about. It's been around for a few years now. I would love to do that. My brother-in-law did one. And I'll get back to that here in a moment. But this person goes on to say after go to a rage room, remodel a room in your home. Um, Whatever letting go of stress looks like for you, take advantage of it. It doesn't help to keep it boxed up on a shelf because when the box overflows, it won't be pretty and it
Mhm.
always comes without warning at the most inopportune time.
Yep, sure does. We pack it in there and compartmentalize, but it'll start popping out when you least expect it.
So that rage room,
Yeah.
what do you think about the rage rooms?
I have heard them. I have not been. It sounds like fun.
Yeah. Yes. So My sister, she told me that that her husband was going to be going to one, and when he was done, I got a hold of him, and I said, "Dude, what was it like?" And he goes, "It was phenomenal." It's like, "It was amazing." He goes, "There were so many different things to smash, and when I got out of there, I just felt really good." I was like, "Huh." I was like, "That's interesting." I wouldn't mind trying it.
No, I wouldn't mind either. I got to see what my son is doing, see where the closest one is. Hey, let's go.
Yeah, there you go. The next big conference, we should get a bunch of dispatchers together and go find a rage room and then just bring it.
Or have one at APCO International.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Oh man, that would be fun. So it has been amazing to have you on for this dispatchers roundtable to talk about the differences between compassion fatigue, PTSD, but also talking about the top five of top five list of building dispatch resilience, and also being able to share the study that you're doing right now, which it's going to do many great things. I just know it. Robin over here says, need a 24/7 one just for public safety. LOL. Talk about team building. No,
Oh, that
for
would be
real.
fun.
Yes. So as we close up here, how do people find out more about you and everything that you're doing?
You have the link that you're going to post for
Yes.
the study if
Mhm.
anybody is interested in participating. Um, there are several questions that have to be answered, or reach out to me by email. I'm at ajohn209 at odu.edu.
All right.
More than happy to. It's always fun. I always love being on your podcast.
Yes, this is always good, and I just love everything that you're doing, and but also the fact that you come from dispatch, you're able
Mhm.
to put that experience into everything that you're doing, and for people to learn more and to be able to relate, but also more importantly to feel comfortable with who it is that they're working with, what
Yeah.
they're listening to, all of it. Because I feel like that's a big part of it, and it's great. So thank you so very much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Oh, if you're in Baltimore in May, I will be at the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation's World Congress talking about dispatchers and compassion fatigue. So stop by and say hey.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And I will be right back with you here in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, or you have a topic that you would like us to discuss here on the Dispatchers Roundtable, you can email that out to wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. This can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live. You can also follow us on Twitter. That is at 91 Podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. And this live broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader in next gen core services. And thank you, In Digital, very much. But also a big shout out to patrons of the podcast and subscribers on Facebook. And if you want to become a patron, you can check us out. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast, or on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast/support. But also for all of that I just said, if you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can just type in that, and that'll take you to my bio page, and you'll find everything on there. So thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it more than you know. And let's see, Robin says, thank you both for what you're doing for the industry. And thank you for the job that you do. And everybody who is watching right now, thank you for the job that you do. We appreciate it more than you know. And we wouldn't be able to do everything we do if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you so, so very much. And for the flagship show, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next round.